Namaste to all the students. I, JVN Dr. Ekta Rana, Assistant Professor of English. I welcome you in the lecture of Introduction to English Literature. Our today's topic is Ideology and Literature. First of all, I would like to discuss what is the greatness in literature. It is a truism to state that the test of a work of literature is not to be found in its formal ideology. The most cursory examination of a few great works of literature will prove the validity of this truism. Many of us recognize Tolstoy as a great writer, a genius, and a thinker of the first order. Do we do this because of the formal attitudes, the ideology in his major works? In Anna Karenina, the character Levin develops during the course of his novel the conception of political non-resistance which became part of the gospel of Tolstoyism. Levin found reasons for refusing to take an interest in public affairs, and these reasons were Tolstoy's own for formulating this doctrine. Because we disagree with Tolstoy's views, represented in his characterization of Levin, will we therefore deny the greatness of Anna Karenina? In War and Peace, Tolstoy presents a view of history which succeeds in atomizing history to the degree that it is impossible to distinguish between influences that are essential and of weight in the influencing of events and those which are incidental or secondary. Yes, see here, we are basically going to be looking at many of the words ending in isms such as liberalism, socialism. This comes in literature. We will study number of. And then what is ideology? First thing to be clear on is that there really is no clear and agreed upon definition of ideology. It is a difficult term to really define properly. So we will go through these certain points, then only we will come to know in detail that what actually ideology is and how it is applied on literature. Okay, according to this conception of history, every single human being in a period influences the history of that period. History is the result of all the actions and all the thoughts of every single human being. In a sense, this is correct. The history of man is everything that happens to man. But can we seek to explain and to understand man if we apply this conception concretely? If we do, we have no means of truly evaluating what factors are essentially and important in a given historic study and what ones are non-essential. Dismissing this theory of history, which is embedded into the very warp and woof of War and Peace, and which is also presented in the novel in essay form, do we therefore destroy the value of this work? Then Balzac was anti-democratic, and his formal attitudes were those of restoration, which follows the fall of Napoleon. The formal view of Theodore Dreiser concerning man in the universe is an undigested hodgepodge of crude materialism and misunderstood science. Are his books consequently to be dismissed? Examples to demonstrate this point are endless. If we literally adopt such a view of literature, we therefore exclude ourselves from an appreciation of many of the greatest works of the past. We cannot then appreciate the literature and the art which precedes democracy, because it is not democratic. If we are socialists, we cannot appreciate the great literature of the modern age. If we demand that literature in a direct, obvious, and mechanical fashion, it reflects the major struggles of a period from which it springs or with which it deals. What are we to say of such a novel as Wuthering Heights? This novel, in my opinion, is one of the greatest of all English novels, which describes characters who lived during the period when Bonaparte was at the height of his power. Bithal, it has nothing to say of the danger of Old Bonnie invading England. Is it therefore invalidated as a novel? Literature is one of the arts which recreates the consciousness and the conscience of a period. It tells us what has happened to man, what could have happened to him, what man has imagined might happen to him. It presents to us the environments, the patterns of destiny, the joys and sorrows, the tribulations, the dreams, the fantasies, the aspirations, the cruelties, the shames, the dreams of men and women. Life is full of mysteries, and one of the major mysteries of life is man himself. Literature probes into that mystery. Just as science permits man to understand nature, literature permits man to understand himself. Just as science makes the forces of nature human in the sense that it permits the construction of instruments which can control these forces, so does literature aid in making man human to himself. Literature, by its very nature, cannot in and of itself solve social and political problems. Any solution to a social and or a political problem in a work of literature is a purely mental solution. These problems are problems of action. Every problem delimits the kind of means which can and those which cannot be of use in its solution. This statement applies in logic, in mathematics, in the physical sciences, in the solution of social and political problems, and in the problems which an artist must face in his own work. It is as absurd to assume that you can solve political and social problems with a poem as it is to call in a painter and ask him to save from death and a man stricken with appendix by painting a picture. Okay. Thank you for watching.